Well, hello everybody. Once again, I'm TheFish, and I'm here to bring you guys another awesome StarCraft 2 cast. Now, today I'm going to bring you guys something a little bit different. If you haven't been following along on the Team Liquid forums, you may or may not be aware of some new maps that are popping up and taking the community by storm. And a lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon. A lot of people are totally against it. But there are these new maps that are out now, and they're called 6M, and of course the reason that they're called 6M is because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mineral fields per base, and that's a little bit different from normal maps. Normal maps, of course, have 8 minerals and 2 geysers, and this has 1 rich Vespene geyser. The net result is that all the resources, or your resource gathering per base, is decreased by about 25%. So we've been, a lot of people in this little group of people have been trying to test these maps out, have been playing a lot of games to try and see, is this a viable kind of way of playing, and what can we do to sort of see, is this something that could maybe provide some better gameplay. And of course, there's a really cool article on Team Liquid. It was written by a guy named Baron, and it's on. It's called "The Breadth of Gameplay in StarCraft 2." So you can go on Team Liquid and check that out if you don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, this particular game is going to be myself, TheFish, versus JCIT, and both of us are Diamond League players on the North American server, and we're basically just going to be, fooling around a little bit, trying to see who's got some better build orders and what we can do to try out some new different things. Now, the map is going to be called 6M Crosspoint, and Crosspoint is a pretty cool map. It was made by Iron Man StarCraft. Some cool features of this map are pretty easy to defend natural. That's close by your base, and a third that's also reasonably close by, but it's a little bit farther than some other 6M maps we've been seeing. And then a fourth base over here is available, and this was a gold base, but I guess Iron Man decided to change that to regular. So anyway, I'm going to be opening up with 2 barracks here, and my Protoss opponent, he's got a second gateway coming down. One of the things that you see very often on these kinds of maps is you'll see players going for very fast expansions. What 6M wants to encourage players to try and put more emphasis on expanding, rather than just having your players, basically go for 2 base all-ins every game. That's kind of the exact stuff we're trying to avoid. So you're going to see me throw down a command center right here. And JCIT looks like he might be preparing to do some sort of expansion as well. We haven't seen very many all-in-ish type build orders come out from players yet. One thing to remember is that since you have 25% less resources, a 1 base all-in, for example, a 1 base all-in for a Protoss would be a 3-gate rather than a 4-gate. So you have to keep that kind of thing in mind when you're looking at these games, is that conventional build orders just don't really work, or they don't work as intended, I should say. So I'm going to be setting up a bunker outside of my natural, get some defense going, and trying to get this base up and running. JCIT also, of course, going to be expanding. Nothing too crazy here, and he's going to be poking out with these 2 stalkers to try and get an idea. Meanwhile, this stalker did try and poke up into my main base, but was warded away by that bunker. JCIT going to be setting up a couple of pylons around the map, and he's going to be grouping up his stalkers together. It looks like he might want to put some pressure onto my natural. So he's going to walk up here, he's going to take a few shots at these Marines, but he's going to have to back off. Meanwhile, back at home, we've got a robotics facility coming down for JCIT, and we've got another barracks coming down for me. Actually, 2 more, so that'll be 4 barracks in total. JCIT is going to continue to try and press forward with these stalkers, but he's not going to be able to do very much damage with that bunker there. He does want to maybe take some hit points off of it, though. So we do see the bio is in full force as Stimpaks has been researched, and we see Forge coming down somewhere for JCIT. So he looks like he's going to start to tech up a little bit, start to get some upgrades maybe. And he's going to be backing off with these stalkers, so it looks like they're going to go return home. One of the things that people have been complaining about for 6M is they feel that the Protoss have a hard time in the various matchups. And my theory about that is that it really has more to do with the way the maps are set up than any inherent flaws in 6M. Because one of the things that's normal about a 8M map, or a normal map, I should say, is you'll have your very easy to take natural, but then the third base is kind of farther away. That's kind of the norm. But if you think about it in 6M, 3 bases is just only 2 more mineral patches than 2 regular bases. So it kind of makes sense for map makers to, maybe think about including a closer third base, or at least what I'm trying to say is that we're going to have to kind of re-evaluate the way we look at expanding, the way that we look at laying out our expansions for this sort of gameplay type. So I'm going with the bio build here because it's really the only build that I know how to do. And of course, you usually see this kind of play in Terran versus Protoss. I'm not a TVP expert, but I do know a couple things about how to do some bio play. So factory now finally going down for the fish. We do see an immortal coming out for JCIT, and his +1 weapons is going to be finishing up very shortly, and +1/+1 and +1 armor and combat shields are going to be finished for me very soon. It looks like I want to poke out a little bit here with this army. Going to be taking forward position. Meanwhile, JCIT looking pretty good with a couple of Immortals, Stalkers, and Sentries. Sentries, of course, being the most important elements of that group in 6M. Sentries kind of sentry control and unit micro is very important. So we do see, looks like I want to go for some sort of an attack here. And although it looks like I'm not watching my units, so a bunch of them are going to get force fielded and picked off, and that's some good micro there by JCIT to split that army in half, pick off a bunch of those units. So immediately the supply will swing into his favor, and we do see the Colossus now coming out, as well as the Thermal Lance upgrade. Colossi are very strong in this matchup, and also very strong in 6M. Your massive units become more important because you need to break down force fields, and of course, especially massive units like the Colossi. We've seen battle cruisers sort of make a comeback. And it looks like I'm going to be running in here with a whole bunch of Marines, but they're going to get immediately hit by those Zealots, and they're not going to take out very much before they all get taken out. So a nice victory there by JCIT. Meanwhile, back at home, you see 3rd Command Center finished for the fish, as well as a bunch more units. And Starport's going to be finished up, and +1 weapons on the way, as well as 3 more barracks in the back. Now, if we take a look at our income tab, you'll see that it's heavily favoring the Terran player, and that's due to mules, of course. But that's sort of a temporary thing. Once we see this base start to get saturated, it should even out pretty good. So a lot of the things that apply in 8M continue to apply in 6M, but it's sort of a different animal. It can be a little bit confusing to watch at first. So now that JCIT's got his Colossi out, he's going to think about starting to push into this base. And now that he's got this high ground advantage, it's going to be really hard for me to defend this, and realizing that my army is way out of position, I'm going to be forced to retreat with this command center. Will it get away in time? I don't know. The fire has started. It's burning to the ground. but some SCVs are going to come over and repair it. So the command center will not be a loss. The game will go on, but if we again look at our income tab, now the Protoss player is being heavily favored. Back at home, you see JCIT setting up a few photon cannons. He's got a minor contain set up on my unit, so I can't really take this third base too easily. And an observer is going to be coming in to check out what's going on in my base. Medevac's now on the field for the fish, but a minor supply block is going to be preventing him from getting more out immediately. And JCIT is going to say, well, you know what, damage is done. I'm going to head back home. I've got my third base up and running. I want to concentrate on getting an economic lead. This zealot is going to continue to be annoying in that spot. And it looks like the fish is going to be poking out here with some more units. This time he wants to make sure he gets this third base up. A quick death for that zealot. He did his job, and now that's the end of it. The end of the line for him. Meanwhile, we do see a warp prism moving out for JCIT. And another Colossi on the way, as well as charge. Looks like there's a drop coming in for the fish, and he's going to pick off a couple of units here, and then he's actually going to load up, and he's going to try and get away here. Will the stalkers pick it off? Yes, they will. So a nice pickup by JCIT, picking off those stalkers. He was able to get most of those probes out of there without too many losses. If you'll see, the units lost tab is heavily favoring our Protoss player, but not a whole lot of units on this tab for this far in the game, considering there's already a couple engagements already. JCIT now getting down a Templar Archives for those High Templar, another Photon Cannon for protection. And it looks like he's going to be moving across the map with this army to maybe do some more harassment. Meanwhile, the fish is going to be scouting out this fourth base and sending another medevac to do some more drop play. Now again, guys, this is like a Diamond League game here, so you know it's not the same. I can't make any really balanced commentary without maybe having some higher level players. But if you will check out my next video, the next video that I'm going to do is going to be between a Grandmaster and a Masters player. And that's going to be on a new map that was done by Baron. So it's going to be testing out that map, and we're going to see hopefully some better gameplay. But this is a nice little fun game here. Fish is going to be moving in here. He's going to see this Archon, and he's not going to actually be able to take it out. These units are going to get caught by this large army that's moving into position. Meanwhile, the fish, he's got a planetary set up, but he wants to defend this third because he's been able to use that to get right back ahead in supply. JCIT looks like he's going to be moving in here. The fish is going to spot this. He's going to stim all of his units and run right into them. The Colossi are going to be doing a lot of damage. There's some nice force fields, and a lot of those Marines are just going to get sliced to pieces by those Zealots. Now the fish trying to kite back towards this planetary so that he can do some damage with it. All the Zealots are going to be getting taken out, so now that's going to be JCIT's cue to retreat, and the repair going down on the planetary. Without those Zealots, JCIT risks losing some of his more important units, so he can't really press the attack. Now a couple more Zealots moving in here to try and take out this armory. If he does take that out, it would be good because it would mean that the fish can't get his 3-3 upgrades out. 2-2 is about to finish. Looks like the armory will go down despite the repair on it, and the Zealots will get taken out, but a nice little win for him because it means that the 3-3 upgrades are not going to be able to get researched. Warp Prism will get cleaned up. So JCIT taking the map control. He's got control of this watchtower, which is in a nice little spot, but you can't actually walk right past it. You can kind of wander around it, and the other enemy team won't be able to see it until you're kind of too far away. Looks like JCIT is going to be taking his fourth base and setting up a bunch more gateways. If you set up a little bit of a wall here, it's a good thing to do because, as I said, enemy armies can kind of sneak around this watchtower to try and attack this base. So JCIT doing a smart thing by leaving his troops up here. That way they can actually defend the space. If you get a high ground position up here, it can be hard or it can be easy rather to actually assault this base, get some tanks on this ledge. Then suddenly your probes are getting destroyed by tank fire. So meanwhile, it looks like the fish is going to be trying to get his own fourth base up. And his bio army continues to grow. Not a lot of medevacs out though, some more popping. And again, it looks like the supply is going to be favoring our Protoss player, but not too crazy. I have to say my macro was pretty decent this game despite not really being able to secure a lot of bases. And I won't say that's because mules are really OP, I just have pretty good macro. Seriously, I do. And anyway, this space is going to get mined out soon, while JCIT's base is a little bit less mined out. Now it looks like we're going to have some army positioning going on as these stalkers are moving into a dangerous spot. And they're going to be trying to take out some of these units here. They're going to get a medevac, and then they're going to blink away because they're going to realize that this whole army is coming for them. Meanwhile, 3-3 upgrades is still not on the way, but ground weapons level 2 is. And so the upgrades are going to be start to favoring our Protoss player very shortly. Fish going to be moving in here. The supplies are pretty even. He's actually going to miss micro's medevacs, so that's kind of bad. But he is going to get a nice position on this base. He's going to probably be able to pick off his assimilator, but without any tank support, he's not going to be able to do anything. Now he's going to be dropping a few marauders in down here, try and put some pressure on. A couple of marauders getting cut out of position, and JCIT wants to deal with this. He's pretty much maxed out at this point, so he wants to go for an engagement. So Fish spreading out his units. He's going to try to get a good one. And some good spreading. These zealots are getting kited around. Now Fish is starting to work on these main units, and a lot of good storms going down. He's going to be moving his units right in. Storms on everything, and a lot of things are going to be taken out, but all of these Colossi are going to remain. High Templar are still alive, and a number of Protoss units are still up there. Huge supply lead now for JCIT, and the Fish is going to be desperately trying to macro up an army. Meanwhile, a bunch of stragglers are now going to start to get picked off as JCIT moves in here. It looks like he wants to go for the kill. He wants to put some pressure down. But there's a bunch of units lying in wait, so these zealots' lives are going to be forfeit. And JCIT looks like he wants to keep the pressure on. He's going to be moving in the back here with a couple of stalkers to do some multi-pronged harassment, which I think is probably a good idea. Meanwhile, these 2-2 Marines and Marauders and a couple of Vikings now joining the mix. And Vikings could make a pretty good difference against all of these Colossi. Now, watching this replay again is a bit fun. I can kind of see clearly the mistakes that I'm making now. I don't usually play Terran, but when I do, I make sure it's bio. JCIT moving in dangerously close to these units with those stalkers, and it looks like he wants to put pressure. He's going to be checking for a 5th base over here. Meanwhile, the 4th base, the planetary, is not quite finished yet, so JCIT is going to look like he wants to maybe attack into this. So now both players are trying to get some good positioning here. And JCIT is just going to walk right by these units. Stim on everything, but JCIT is going to blink out of there. He's going to lose a couple of stalkers, but most of them are going to be saved, looks like. Now a nice high ground positioning on these Colossi is going to pick off a bunch of Marines there. Almost losing a Colossi though. And it looks like the Fish is going to have to back off. Still a nice supply lead for JCIT. He's got a lot more resources in the bank and a lot more production. But the number of bases is maybe going to start to even up pretty soon. It looks like the Fish wants to go for an attack here. He does have a number of Vikings scanning to take out that observer. And JCIT wisely, he's going to be backing off a little bit, throwing up a few photon cannons. And I never got my 3-3 upgrades. I think I must have just forgotten completely. Anyway, 3-4 Colossi now on the field, as well as a couple High Templar to storm, so a lot of AoE damages. This army's looking pretty scary against the bio units. Fish still pumping out Marauders and Marines. Now more Marauders joining the fray. A couple Ghosts in there as well. But man, that's going to have to be the best EMP ever. Fish wants to do any damage. Now +3/+3 is starting, and JCIT moving in here, trying to get a good position, get a nice engagement going. JCIT now taking a 6th base, something that you do actually need to do in a long macro game in 6M. It's not typical, but in 6M you do sometimes need to take a 6th base. Zealots looks like they're going to be moving along the side, and a couple of Vikings are going to be moving in here. These Zealots are going to run into a bunch of Marines, which are going to get microed back and start kiting. Meanwhile, a bunch of Stalkers moving in for the kill here. They're going to start to do damage. A bunch of High Templar getting some nice storms going down. And oh man, the storms and the lasers are terrible. A good EMP, but it's nowhere near enough, as all that splash damage lands right on basically half of an army. And this one's starting to look a bit silly. A couple of Colossi getting picked off there, but will it be enough? No, 5 hit points on that Colossi, and one more remaining, a few Stalkers and Immortals. So not the worst engagement for the Fish, but the supply lead for JCIT is getting really big here. Now a bunch of barracks blocking off the entranceway to this planetary, but it's not going to be very much. Those Colossi can outrange the planetary, and the High Templars are going to be moving in here. Looks like this Colossi will go down thanks to a missile turret. The repair going down on the planetary, will it be enough? It doesn't look like it. Storm going down on 3 Marauders, finishing them off. So now Storm's going down on these SCVs. SCVs now trying to chase down the High Templar, and the planetary fortress doing some good damage here. But it looks like these High Templar might be able to escape. So a nice defense by the Fish. Does manage to pick off most of those units, but JCIT will get away with a lot of expensive ones, like the Sentries, the High Templars. Meanwhile, the Fish, he's trying to repair this planetary with a couple of mules, and he's going to be loading up for a drop, trying to figure out some way to get back into this game as JCIT continues to bank up over 8,000 minerals now. He's up to 6. Let's see, he's on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bases now. So 7th base now just finishing, and meanwhile the Fish is only going to be on 4 bases, but of course only 2 of those are mining. So it's going to be basically a 5-base Protoss versus a 2-base Terran. And it's starting to look pretty grim for the Fish, but the game's not quite over yet. As you can see in these 6M games, there's a little bit more of a defender's advantage. It's why I think that doing something like a 2-base or a 3-base all-in, so to speak, is just not really going to be as effective as it is, because you have less units to defend, sure, but at the same time. And a nice pickup there. Medevac's not going to make it into the main base though, and some nice Blink Stalker Micro from JCIT. It's going to prevent that drop from doing much damage at all. So the Fish looks like he wants to move in. He wants to make something happen here, and of course that job did manage to catch JCIT a bit out of position. So this attack's going to be a bit late. If he had moved in a little bit sooner, I should say. If I had moved in a little bit sooner, it would have been a better attack. Now JCIT's half of his army is getting split up here, and Fish is going to be able to pick off a few Zealots and a Colossi. Now a bunch of units coming in here trying to get a surround on all these units, but the Zealots are going to evaporate to all that Marine and Marauder fire. Now a bunch of Sentries are going to go down, it looks like. More Stalkers coming in. And the Medevac's coming in trying to heal all these units. Is it going to be enough? The upgrade advantage is starting to show itself, but all of these units are going to get taken down. So the Fish is now trying to get himself back into the game. Ooh, a nice storm picks off a bunch more units. So there is still a nice supply lead for JCIT. And a warp in of about 8 more Zealots just went down somewhere. It looks like he's going to be moving in with a bunch of Zealots and a High Templar. Reinforcements are now coming in for the Fish. And it looks like he's going to be trying to go for this 5th base with a pretty bedraggled army. He's going to start to take down all these units, pick off a couple of High Templar. They didn't have enough energy for a storm, and they're going to try and start to focus this Nexus. No, they're going to have to engage all of these units, and they're going to be kiting into the corner all these Zealots. And it looks like that they're just running out of stim, and they're actually going to get all loaded up and evacuated. Feedbacks are not going to quite be able to take out those medevacs because most of their energy had been depleted, but most of these units will escape. Another army starting to form up for the Fish here, who is looking quite behind. But JCIT, it seems like he doesn't quite have the production to keep up with all the money that he's making. Throwing down a few pylons here. A lot of macro to deal with when you're playing these games. And this map is pretty much getting split down the middle, but if the Fish wants to get back in, he needs another base. He's now totally oversaturating his two bases. Well, not totally, but he's going to try and get a command center up and running so that he can maybe get back into this game. But meanwhile, a bunch more warpins, and suddenly the supply is 180 to 129. JCIT marching across the map with some very strong looking 333 Zealots and 333 Colossi, a bunch of Archons, and a few Marauders are going to be running in here but get taken out immediately. Mobius Reactor coming out and Ghosts on the way. A little bit late, but something to try and deal with all of these High Templar, which we don't see too many on the field right now. It looks like he wants to just go for the brute force of Zealots and Colossi, which can be quite good against bio units. So a Warpin now coming in. At the same time, though, an engagement looks like it's about to happen in the middle. All of the Fish's units are spread out, and he looks like he's going to go right for the Colossi. He's going to get one, and he's not going to be able to get two, and now all these Archons are doing a ton of damage to all these units, and more Zealots coming in here, and it looks like this force is going to get taken out pretty much as even more Zealots come in here. There's just, when you're outnumbered by Zealots, when your Marine Marauder force is outnumbered by Zealots, you know it's a pretty hopeless situation. At the same time, these Zealots were able to come in here and pick off this planetary fortress, which had been damaged from a previous engagement, and now JCIT is going to be moving in with his very scary army. So Fish is going to be moving this command center out of the way, and he's got only 75 supply here, most of which is in workers. Only a few units left to defend. Maybe one awesome EMP by this Ghost can do it. JCIT at this point just picking up a few barracks. There's really nothing else here. More Marines and Marauders are coming out, but will it be enough? It looks like we're gonna maybe be seeing GG here in a second, folks. JCIT is now maxed out. He's decided to go ahead and take this base on this side of the map. And a few Dark Templars now coming in to try and do some harassment. Fish now pulling a bunch of SCVs off the line to try and maybe deal with this. And a lot of High Templar are going to be coming in here. And here we go. Storms going down, feedbacks, and that's going to be all she wrote. It's a pretty one-sided slaughter. And there is the GG from me. Good game, well played, says JCIT. So there you go. Diamond League exhibition game of 6M. I hope you guys really enjoyed that one. Not too much to say about it. I don't think we really learned anything in terms of balance, but it was a lot of fun. That's the one thing I really want to say about these games, these maps, is they're a whole lot of fun to play on. So if you get a chance, come to channel 7M. I know it's a little confusing, not 6M, 7M, to play some games. You can try out this map as well as others by Baron, Iron Man, and other map makers, and of course by myself. So thanks for watching, guys.